righty, we'll call this meeting to order. Before we get into business, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the many individuals and families who have been deeply affected by the Hurricane Helene. This storm has brought significant challenges to our community, and I ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of those impacted and in gratitude for the efforts of those who continue to support recovery efforts. Thank you. All righty, and we will move into public comment. I believe we have two folk here from ServPro. Do y'all want to speak together or as an individual? Yeah, just come up together. That'll be fine. And then just speak directly into the mic. Say your name, your address, and then after you say those two things, your 3 minutes will begin for the clerk, and if we need more time, we can get you more time.
Okay. I'm Amy. I am from ServPro. My address is actually in New York. We did come down from New York to help your local communities here with recovery efforts and restoration for both commercial and residential businesses. So we do handle fire damage, of course, water, flooding, mold remediation, mud removal, sanitization, deep cleaning as well. So we're here for all of your local clients. We're not going anywhere. We'll be here for a while. And this is Jose, who is our production manager. I call him the numbers guy. He runs the estimates for us. Our estimates are free. There's no obligation to anybody. Happy to take a look and see what we can do to help someone. If we're the right fit, great. If we can help, wonderful.
She pretty much said it all.
Yeah.
I did want to add that during my inspection of a lot of places, I am seeing that the concern of people trying to rebuild as quickly as possible, and that's what our goal is, to be able to provide that service so they can. We want to make sure it's the safest way. I have seen issues where they're trying to rebuild and it's just the wrong way, and it can cause health and liability issues, especially in the commercial part of it all. So we do want to make sure that even if it is some sort of guidance or expertise that we can provide service to, we will be there. We did obviously leave some takeaways, so if there is anyone that wants to be able to pass it along, reach out to us by all means. We're available, just like how Amy said. We're here, we're not going anywhere.
All right, sounds good. Is your contact information, I guess, on?
Our cell phone, emails, every office information, that's all here. We are right now currently stationed in Tennessee, but we are here by pretty much 7 a.m. every day. 7 days a week, we're here by 7 a.m.
Thank you all.
Did you bring any, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you bring any brochures so we understand the scope of your capability?
They're all there as well.
Okay,
There's
thank you.
flyers on the table.
Okay.
Which encompasses everything we do, but it's really here, the focus, of course, is getting people's buildings or properties dried out and restored, clean and mold-free.
Okay.
I ran into Amy this weekend. She came down to our distribution and asked if there was anything she could do to help. And I appreciate that you did that, and I told her, I said, you might want to come to our meeting, and that'll kind of get the word out to our companies in the area to hit a bigger area, because we were so busy, we didn't have time to really talk or hang out.
Yeah. Well,
But I think you kind
And
of...
so when you say you're here, do y'all have a location, or are you just by phone and being sent? How does
So
that?
right now, we do have a temporary location over at downtown. Probably the best way to put it is like by the Ruth Chris restaurant downtown Nashville. We're pretty much set over there, but we are, because we're kind of pretty much targeting every area that we can. So we do have a command post wherever we possibly can set up.
Awesome.
We're always reachable by cell.
Okay.
24 hours actually is how we're built. So if anyone, thinks of something at 2 a.m., call me. I'm happy to answer questions. If they'd like to come take a look at their properties, happy to do it.
Biggest thing is that we are supplying power. We do have different types of generators that we brought down with us. So if for anyone that needs power, we have that covered.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good. Well,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate y'all being down here from New York and the service you're providing, and it's good to know this information for folk. Thank you.
Anything needed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else that wishes to speak during public comment? All righty, hearing none. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any. Any updates? All righty, moving on, we don't have any items on the consent agenda. So moving on to discussion, item number 3, the discussion on several planning and zoning related postal lien items. Mr. Rufus. And thank you for being here and everything you've been doing.
Thank y'all. I'm glad to see everybody. So, yeah, I wanted to come in front of you tonight to, it's a random smorgasbord of things that just, kind of came to mind as I went through the week last week, all related to the Helene situation. Trying to start in order of ease, possibly easiest to hardest, but the first one, and realizing that this may cause a little bit of whiplash, but we just got done a few months ago talking about restrictions on RVs and campers. And one of the first things I thought about, and this, as we were talking in the parking lot down there, as numerous people came through and just hearing stories and whatnot. One, I don't know which officer it was, what jurisdiction. We had, our officers down there, Henderson County, and law enforcement personnel from all over, which was great to see. And at some point during the week, I heard somewhere, one of the police officers mentioned, possibly putting his family temporarily in a camper for the time being. And it hit me what we had just done to the ordinance. So much is relative now as far as what people will complain about. And one of the first things I wanted to ask about was gauging your interest in bringing some kind of resolution before you next week to temporarily lift that restriction, which severely limits occupancy of a camper RV, and just can talk about some kind of consideration of an exemption for this displaced by the storm for, I don't know what to say. You could say 6 months, say 12 months. I don't know. We could talk about that as you give me input.
Sure.
And I could bring some kind of resolution back, and we just simply, by resolution, state that we're going to temporarily lift any enforcement action on section 4.10, 8.9 if there's interest. So I'll pause there.
Yes,
That's easy, yeah.
yeah, that's
Do we have
an
a-
easy one.
Do we have a time frame in mind?
months?
It says up to 1 year on your form right here.
Well, yeah, and as my brain was
It's just
all over the place as I was
suggestion.
typing, so, we could technically start with 6 months and
And
add an
revisit.
option to extend. I'm not gonna be out there looking for permitting. Basically, this is designed for the situation where I get a complaint about someone in a camper and RV, and, if I probe into the situation, there's probably, I feel, a 95% chance in the next year that it's gonna be related to this. Maybe I'm overkill, I don't know. I just heard that one story and tweaked my mind as far as what we've just been through on the ordinance, and, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months.
I don't
Maybe
think it's
six.
overkill.
Yeah, I don't think it's overkill either, especially
Necessary.
even one person's displaced.
Do you want to do
Yes.
12 months or a 6 with an option to extend it to?
I think
12,
6 with an option to extend it. What do y'all think?
At least an option, because
Yeah.
there's some people that are totally displaced from their home, may not be able to go back to the home, and as difficult as it is to find anything reasonable to rent or buy, I have a feeling some people will probably need that 12. So if council feels better about the 6 with the option for 6 more months, I'm okay with that, but I definitely want it to go up to 12, in my opinion.
And trust me, I would be liberal in my application of an extension and whatnot, so I will bring some kind of document, simple resolution for next week then, that we can.
Do you want us to just do it for 12 months?
Just do it for 12.
Yeah.
Because if they don't need it, they won't use
Rather than
it.
have to in 6 months come, as long as you're comfortable, we don't want to push that, but this is.
That's
it could-
le-
this
that's
could be-
less of a burden.
This is
Yeah.
going to take a lot
Yeah.
of time for,
Recovery.
Honestly, some
everybody.
people could be caught up in insurance bureaucracy for
yeah,
12 months.
yeah.
Absolutely. We may be talking a year from now, if it becomes a really prevalent issue, we may be talking in a year about an extension of another year, so
Yeah,
I like 12 months.
People are going to be inundated with trying to find contractors that are available.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be swamped.
Insurance issues,
yeah.
material issues. I'm already hearing materials hard to come by. I think you're being very reasonable to suggest
bring that language next week. Part two of this, or item B, you obviously have never seen anything on the scope. In the past, without just on administrative discretion, there's been the random times here and there when, like, I know a structure has burned down, or a couple of occasions where something flooded on an isolated example, and just on an administrative level in the past, I've waived zoning and, if applicable, floodplain development permit fees for people that are just coming to us for permits to rebuild. And the grand scheme of things, like a $50 zoning permit or a $250 flood permit, in the scope of the job that they're facing is minimal, but I just feel like it's always been a good token gesture. And granted, those were isolated occasions. I can tell you that the vast majority of repairs that people will be inquiring with us about, unless they're in the floodplain, like most things like tree on the house, most things are not going to result in anything that people would even need to come to us for a zoning permit about anyway, unless they're saying, well, while we're doing the repairs, we're going to add a bedroom or add this or that. But I just wanted to kind of have a blanket, gauge your interest in whether or not you want to do this waiving of floodplain and zoning permit fees. We may get more into floodplain permitting than I like to admit, because we are going to see situations where we have scenarios where people are going to be told they have damage beyond 50% in the floodplain, which by FEMA all the way down to the state, trickling down to the municipalities that are participant in the NFIP program, flood insurance program, which is most municipalities and counties in the state. We are going to have situations where people that get told their damage beyond 50% are going to have to comply with the provisions of the floodplain ordinance, meaning they have to basically start over and elevate. So this folds in with at least want to waive their permit fees if they're facing that level of bureaucratic red tape. So that was the next idea.
Just waiving of fees
Permit fees, which are
for replacing whatever's there.
Yeah, if it's a permit fee related to Helene, then I'd like to be able to offer legit to waive those fees. I will say our department, planning and zoning, is never like a revenue generating department. That's, we operate out of general.
I mean, and the zoning permit fee is not very high.
It's like $50 for a single family residence that's brand new versus like $25 for like simple additions or rebuilds or, but again, zoning's not really going to be applicable. Most of it's going to be what would be a $250 floodplain permit, which, every little bit. So again, it just, in the face of craziness, it's like kind of one good token gesture we can make to folks that are already facing a nightmare. I mean, they're going to charge me fees and. So.
Yeah, and we will, we don't have the full number on the number of structures that have been damaged and that are in the floodplain, but I don't think it's going to be that substantial of a number that it impacts that $250.
They would be fees that we wouldn't be getting anyway. I mean, my next year is going to be spent probably dealing with aftermath of this, so.
I don't think any of us are looking to profit off of
I think that's
somebody's
appropriate, to waive the fees.
trauma.
I'm not totally sure if that even has to be done by a resolution formally or not. Mark, do you have thoughts on what we would do?
We probably should, and if you don't have time by the October, definitely by November, but we probably should do something just so it's,
I'm pretty sure.
or at a minimum by motion, with council
Sure.
approving that you've discussed and you approved it. So you can probably do something very brief.
Yeah, I should be able to have
resolution as well.
another resolution document drafted for that one.
Yeah.
That's just the one we'll have to rely on our system a bit, but, we would, if I'm in doubt, I will go check the property if I feel like I'm being taken advantage of on that one. So, but I'll bring something for you back next week. Excuse me.
And then you'll still have to physically approve it through Henderson County, correct, like you normally
That's
do?
the
So
rub.
that's just,
Like, they come through us on zoning and
Yeah.
floodplain,
And then go
they have to
to
go into
permit.
the county for building permits anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know what tax the county will figure out.
And trust me, they're getting inundated with, how are you gonna handle this so that, whatever expediting it of it can happen without jeopardizing
Right.
that they're checking things like they normally, per building code.
And the last item that again, this feels like a little bit of a no-brainer, but I wanted to gauge your interest in, and this would probably be something we would bring back in November, because I need to check into the current, statutes as it relates to moratorium. But I would like to propose some form of moratorium for us and I figure out how to phrase it, new significant development in floodplains, period. Because as you know, FEMA sets a national model ordinance. I mean, we ultimately, I don't think, can totally prohibit development in floodplains, obviously. You can get into tricky legal quandaries with regard to eminent domain, kind of indirectly, and takings. But anyway, I would like to bring forward some sort of moratorium, either 6 months or 12 months. If statutory authority is there for us to do it for 12 months, I'd like to do it 12 months. And basically, the reasons being a couple-fold. They may seem obvious. Floodplain permitting reviews an extra layer of scrutiny, and we're going to be in it with McGill Associates helping us with damage assessment on current stuff in floodplains. There's going to be an inundation of floodplain permitting on what's existing. So we'd like to not have opportunity for much new development to come into the floodplain while we're dealing with that. First thing. Second, just to also have McGill, and I've already got some ideas in my own head, not even being an engineer, for ways I'd like to talk to McGill and have them study our ordinance to figure out other ways to achieve higher standards in the floodplain ordinance. FEMA sets a standard that's a model ordinance that says, all right, the NFIP communities have to meet this standard. It passes down to the state once again. The state has a model ordinance that I know has some standards that are slightly higher standard than FEMA. We implemented a higher standard than the FEMA ordinance in that we had a slightly higher elevation requirement. We require 3 feet above what's called the base flood elevation, whereas the state, I think, only requires 2 feet above base flood elevation. Not getting into anything right now, I'm just going to say there are developments I know that have met our code, that met the 3-foot elevation requirement, that are problematic at best, all the way up to possible total losses. Granted, this was a 1,000-year storm. We can't guess, that doesn't mean it won't happen again for 1,000 years. We'll get some form of storm in a year or 5 years, anything, but I want to look for opportunities to see how we can, without getting too overburdensome, but get to some higher standard, whether we need to increase our elevation requirements a little bit more, whether we look at that controversial issue about, where the county was looking at going, they had limits on fill. We never had the higher standard of limiting fill in the flood fringe. We don't allow flood and fill in the floodway. That's part of the national standard. But the county for years had limitations on fill in the flood fringe that I know, and I wasn't keeping up with it because it's not my jurisdiction, but I know they were looking at easing back on that, and I don't know where they'll go with that. But we want to look at whether or not we want to add some language on that.
They did that in October.
Okay. And I would like to
Last
say,
year.
I can already think of 2 uses in my head, but, there are certain things in the models that you use, of very few scant uses that they say you just can't have these uses in a floodplain, period. Things like hazardous material storage, chemical storage. There's a couple that escape me, but I want to see what can we do to say there are some more uses that you just do not want to see in a floodplain. I'm just going to say the 2 that came to my mind instantly were multifamily residential and
Yeah.
schools. And I'll leave it at that for now. And what I would say is I would likely come back to you in November with draft language on a moratorium. just to, hopefully for 12 months, and then we could, we get through the immediate wake of damage assessment and all that with McGill, and then set them loose to work with me to study the ordinance and figure out what draft ordinances to bring back. And we have to work with the state to make sure we're not overreaching, you know, that kind of thing, but that's kind of the direction I was thinking about, as we went through last week.
And it may be helpful, and you were here in 04, 05 with, yeah, when that storm hit, to do some comparison of what was flood damage then, because that was pretty bad as far as the flood waters up. I don't think any of the homes in South Chase were hit or anything like
If I'm
that.
standing here on the record
Yeah.
now, 2004, whatever fall that was, we had literally just entered the NFIP program, so we didn't have, I can't stand here and tell you that we, by then, like a few months in, had any new development in place that met our code versus the grandfather old stuff that didn't meet the new code. At the time, you know, we had been through a very bizarre transition where I came in as planning director, and we had had an in-house fire marshal that had literally just left. They had also been, at the time, the zoning administrator, who was also the floodplain administrator. So I was not even the CFM at the time, and former town manager Craig Honeycutt was, you know, I'd say there was a few month gap where we just didn't have a floodplain administrator in those early days. So it's like I could not tell you any anecdotal information on any damage that we had. I don't remember getting flooded, no pun intended, with permit requests. But we thought those were big storms at the time, Francis and I, were back to back, but.
And I mean, that was the worst that we had until this. And I'm just, some perspective that they're saying this was like 100-year
Yeah.
event.
Yeah, this was
Yeah,
1,000.
1,000-year, okay.
In a lot of spots. So, that's all I got for now.
Well, I
Yes,
think
how's-
that that's one of the most common sense things. You would absolutely have no argument from me on that one, because I really had an issue with that anyway. And I worried about the apartments back when they brought it to us, and you know,
And I do
seeing
think we do
all
have
of
some
that.
county projects that with already approval, you know.
I've already been thinking about that.
I don't think we could extend the moratorium to anything already approved. I hate to say, there will be conversations ahead, and, you know, there's what should be and shouldn't be versus what can be, and our ordinance, you know, states what can and can't happen. I'll be having some blunt conversations with people, knowing that ultimately I'll have to sign permits, but I'm going to speak my mind to, you know, in the coming months. Something like this will turn your filter off real quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just want to do what we can to get out ahead of this, to, you know, do what we can.
It's a great idea.
Well, I don't think I hear any opposition, so I guess 12 months moratorium sounds good.
12 months, okay,
Yeah.
if we can do that by statutes, otherwise I'll let you know if it's like a 180-day limit. And it may be one of those where, I mean, sometimes the school government, you ask them questions and they say, well, go ahead and approve it, and if anybody challenges you, then, you know, let them sue you, you know? But this might be one of those situations.
And we may be able to get, you know, substantive changes or changes that you're comfortable
Yeah.
with before 12 months is up, so.
Thanks for brainstorming that.
Yeah, thanks for all these items, Eric.
I'll
Thank you for my work.
be, you know, laying awake at night thinking of more of this stuff, I'm sure, so I'll be bringing it to you as I think of it.
Yes,
so.
yes, yes.
Sounds good. Do we have any other questions or comments for Eric? All right, sounds good, thank you. We
Thanks, sir.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate everything you've been doing.
All righty, moving on to item number 4, the discussion of legislative priorities list. Mr. Manager, y'all have a good evening.
Well, I know this isn't highest on everyone's mind here, legislative priority list, but it was an item I had planned to bring before you for the October meeting. Sometimes you do it back in September. You've got, and you know we've been doing this for years, you've got a draft list in the packet of the legislative priorities, and they're a little bit general. Unless you want me to run through them all, it's this is essentially the same list as last year. And I think it still covers a lot of things of interest, and if there's something you want to change or modify, add, delete, let me know, to either discuss tonight or by next week, if you can take action on it. So that's the list, there's 9 of them, and very similar to what we had, or same as last year. And then, I haven't been doing this in years past, but this past couple of years, we had some changeover on our legislative delegation. They asked, and I think it was from Representative Balkum's office, like a specific project list, which we put together, and I've got a copy of that, of what would be like a suggested, some specific projects for assistance from our legislative delegation if they were able to obtain funding to help us get these things done. And it was the Greenway Extension, the Fanning Bridge Road Sewer Project, which was those 3 roads off of there, Westfeld, North Hudson, and Dogwood Terrace. And then the last was an automated license plate reader that wasn't funded in this last budget request for $15,000. And I know there was a suggestion a couple months back, we were talking about the fishing pier that would be ADA accessible. I don't have an estimate to be able to put that in there to give a ballpark, so that's why that's not on this list, but we could get that added should we get to the point where they're asking either Representative Balkum or Senator Moffett for that. And then I didn't have it in the packet, I referenced it in the memo, and you got a hard copy, and this is a little bit dated because they're working on a update to the League of Municipalities legislative goals. So this is the 2023, 2024, and you can see in some ways it mirrors the legislative priority list for Fletcher specific on infrastructure-related things, the vibrant communities, neighborhoods, and adaptive municipal operations. So that's there to give you some reference to what the league looks at statewide for municipalities and what they're advocating for. So, that's the list. If there's things you want to modify or edit on this, let me know, and I'll do that, and hopefully you'll be comfortable with it by next week, whatever changes you might want to make.
I'm curious if council would be interested in adding something about affordable housing on the League of Municipalities sheet here on the vibrant communities. They have expand federal and state resources for affordable housing. And it seems like that's the topic that comes up pretty frequently here.
It's number 9.
Is it in there?
Yeah, the very
Oh, I
last
see it,
one.
thank you. I
Yeah.
apologize.
For support for additional federal and state resources to facilitate workforce housing projects.
Okay.
That was added last year.
Well, then in that case, it looks good to me. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
That's good.
All right. Well, that looks good. Then we will move on to the report on Tropical Storm Helene response efforts, Mr. Manager.
Well, I think it goes without saying that, we sustained a lot of damage from this, and our hearts go out to our residents that were impacted by it. Thankfully, we didn't have the level of catastrophic damage that our neighboring communities did, and so very, very thankful for that. I want to thank everybody that's helped during the event. And I thank our staff, and they did a lot, and I thought, did a good job. Of course, we want to debrief when this is over and how do we do this better, and we'll look for those suggestions, and we'll take those criticisms, and constructive criticism to, what can we do better next time? And I'm not necessarily looking for, and I think we're too early into this to really be debriefing about that, but don't want to lose sight of that either. And I had some just kind of things that have happened here and kind of where do we go from here? But, we did have, damage like we've never seen before here. We haven't totaled the number of houses because Eric and I just don't know exactly how many homes have been flooded. We drove around a lot of town. The biggest number appear to be in South Chase. And they're areas that have never flooded before. Never really worried about them flooding because they're far enough outside the 100-year floodplain that I never would have thought Cane Creek would have come up that high to it, but it did. We counted 15 homes just turning left, or when you go into South Chase, Woodhill to
Thorncrest.
Thank you, Thorncrest. And we counted at least 15 homes where we saw people had pulled things out of the house, so we knew it was likely water came into the house. And then there was some not far from Jim's
Yeah, at the end of
neighborhood,
South Chase.
that part of South Chase, that Eric and I didn't see, and we didn't go into every cul-de-sac, but I guess we just didn't think any water would be back there, but there's one street over from where Jim lives, where, I just found this out talking to your daughter out there working at the pod, where it flooded into homes there. So, beyond that, we had a few out in Livingston Farms, again, places where I've been here 18 years, Eric's been here 20 years. We've never had, to our knowledge, any of those homes flood from the biggest flood events.
I've been here 30. So.
Yeah, and so that was kind of shocking, but you got Hooper's Creek that runs back there and really not that far from some of those. It wasn't, there weren't as many in Livingston Farms as there were in South Chase. South Chase seems to be the biggest subdivision that was impacted. And then, like out in Hooper's Creek, like Clover Drive, the end of that, there was some total losses there. They're manufactured homes. And then some of the ones we thought would flood worse, and we may hear about something we're not aware of as we do these surveys, or continue to try and make a record of what we've observed. Wildwood Gardens, that normally is, we've had requests to help them to storm drainage years ago to upgrade culverts. We didn't see, and they're not town-maintained roads, so it's a little more complicated to assist. We didn't notice any noticeable that sediment had come up or flooded, we were really surprised at that. It's the Higgins branch that runs through there. So we had, we had way more than we ever would have thought, but then surprised some areas where we think it would have flooded didn't. So I hate to hang a number on it right now, but maybe 30 to 40 structures, somewhere in that range. It may be more that we actually were flooded water in the house type of thing, or trailer. And then wind damage. There was a good number of trees that obviously you all know from your neighborhoods, but that hit homes and had some fairly significant damage. So that was kind of the extent of the public areas, not town maintained, but that we saw for damage. As far as public facilities that the town's responsible for, thankfully, at least that we can tell now, we'll do a more in-depth with Public Works, but they're just so much in response mode right now. That we could see, none of our streets were washed out, which was, fantastic that we didn't deal with that, because that's a major repair to have to do. And none of our buildings were damaged. We did have some equipment over at Public Works, I think a tractor and possibly a truck. Water came up, we don't know if that's a loss. But the park, the big park, Billmore Community Park had a lot of damage. Greg did I mean, you go through the whole list of the items on there, but there was, our camera, yeah, it's attached, or it looks like this. Our camera operating system is gone. You can see the fences from the road. Almost all the ball fields sustained some level of damage. We have a Duke light pole, the dog park fences, signs missing. The concession buildings never had water up that high, and the concession buildings got significant damage in there. Hopefully, that can be gutted and kept in place. The lacrosse fields, which is the soccer lacrosse fields, just mud. Our disc golf baskets, yeah, the big bridge, we don't know, that first big bridge in the back of the park that most people cross got a lot of debris in the river upstream from it. There appears to be some damage as you approach it to the left-hand side. At least from the pictures I saw, it appears to be in place. So maybe there's no damage underneath it. And if that's the case, that would be a miracle, and maybe not significant repairs to that. And then the second bridge after that, I haven't seen a report on it yet. Playgrounds look good. We have the green maintenance building, the door damaged, and of course some benches and picnic tables that I'm sure are just in various places. So that's our biggest public facility that we can tell it's been damaged. We have to go through FEMA first to determine if insurance will cover it, and then we'll keep documentation if we can submit that to FEMA if insurance isn't covering to do a project for it to try and get reimbursement. So that was, I kind of skipped ahead there. I'm sorry, that report I put for you, but that's kind of the assistance from FEMA for public facilities. I'll start with the distribution site out here. That started on Monday from the south parking lot at Town Hall. We were one of these hubs, one of 6 of them in the county. And once we kind of got through that first day, they had a good system, saw a lot of people coming through there, had a good mix of town employees, county employees that came out to help, or were designated there, and volunteers, and it worked quite well, and we had a good system to it, and helped a lot of people. So, and had a lot of supplies that were handed out. So that ended as of yesterday, and Keith, you were here when I think it was noon or 1-ish, somewhere in there.
No, it was like 3 o'clock.
Oh, was it
4
that
o'clock
late?
when they,
Okay.
yeah, it was an hour before we were gonna stop or something when they called.
Yeah. We had a plan to shut it down at 5. They wanted to continue it through the weekend, so county employees, volunteers, man the hub there, the pod, through the weekend. And then the county has, I guess, made the decision to consolidate them down to 2 that are operating today and tomorrow, Etowah Elementary and Mills River Town Hall. And I don't know if it's going to continue past that. I mean, the numbers have been starting to dwindle. I know you had a fair number, you said
We
Saturday.
had 400 Saturday.
That sounds like a lot.
And I'd say there's probably 300-400 on Sunday. It was.
Really?
It was
Okay.
comparable.
All right, so I don't know why maybe more being kept open through the week, but anyways, I mean, we noticed in the evenings, it was starting to slow down at the
Yeah.
end of the week.
I have a correction on the volunteers.
Yes.
It wasn't county employees, it was all from Captain Gilmore School, Seventh Day Adventist Academy. Those were the people
Fletcher
that were
Academy.
meeting. Yeah, Fletcher Academy.
They were big this weekend.
Okay, so they didn't have any county
No
employees?
county.
Yeah, they
Okay.
sent them home to get rest.
Yeah.
Because they all went back
Okay.
to work.
I think that was orchestrated through Jennifer Balcom and Chris Todd, I guess.
So I think they had one
Chris
county
Todd
employee
sent
on
me-
Saturday.
Pardon?
So I think they had one county employee on Saturday.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Sunday.
We had a nurse from United Healthcare,
Yeah,
I
Jody
think.
Grabowski.
Yeah,
was
Jody
there on
Grabowski,
Saturday.
right? That's
Okay.
why I thought there was,
Yeah, she
well,
was
the
there.
last message I got from Chris Todd was it was going to be manned by county employees and volunteers.
No, he mentioned to me United Way, but I think that there were several from Fletcher Academy and
Yeah.
from Captain Gilmore.
Yeah.
Those folks, they were ready and willing, and so all of them except for, I think it's Joan,
Jody, yeah.
Jody, okay,
Yeah.
were all from the churches. And then, pardon, I'm sorry if I interrupted your train of thought, but I also wanted to reiterate that Fletcher Baptist served like 800 as of Saturday.
Okay,
And then, of course, there'll be the two other churches that are open, Ebenezer and First Baptist in Hendersonville.
okay.
So I was just shocked to hear, because our church hadn't done anything during the week, but we had the town of Fletcher, which was fantastic to have a hub here.
Yeah.
And then, I think it was Friday, they went to social media and said they'd be open, so they were open Saturday, they were open today, they'll be open Tuesday, and then the two churches are alternating days throughout the week.
Okay, so
I'm
that's
sure
the
you
plan,
guys,
Wednesday, okay.
yes, sir.
Okay.
I think
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything beyond Tuesday, so.
So I think the Episcopal churches had their pantry open at least 2 days that I know of last week.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what their
Oh,
schedule
and-
is.
And Apple Valley, and I think some of the other schools, what they're doing with their time this week is they are going and checking on their students. And so some of my friends from Apple Valley contacted me today about some needs. So I ran and got some things and met them up at Hutch Mountain. So they service Hooper Creek and Fletcher and Hutch Mountain area today.
Okay.
So there's been, because there's some people that aren't getting out at all.
Yeah.
So there's those multiple efforts going on, I know y'all are aware of too, but it was just wonderful to see today.
Yeah, good. Yeah, there was a home, well, 5, 6, 7 families, something like that, off of Souther Road. I'm gonna forget the name of the road now, because it's been so long since I've been down where it was. I've been down there once, where it's, gets, and it splits. It's, what was the road off of Souther? It's not where Souther continues around, it's where you go straight.
Mountain Laurel Lane?
Yes, and I was up there, and the road was washed out, yet, and then when it
That's the one I
splits-
told you about.
Yeah, okay, and, so, one of the days I was out there, I almost couldn't find it, and I'm glad one of our police Captain Fulmer, gave me pretty good directions, and yeah, the road was gone up there.
Absolutely.
And they had a little footpath across the creek,
Yeah.
and a table set up, and put supplies down there, so that was good, that, people were able
That's
to go
where I
out
told
and
you
do-
a few days
Yeah,
ago, we dropped
yeah.
water
That was
off at the
same one.
footbridge.
Okay, yep.
And then over the weekend, we spoke to one of the sons who's a firefighter, and it's Margaret and Johnny Swangham's son. And so he said that they were working on getting a culvert in there and gravel, but they were having a hard time finding materials. So, and I think when we stopped by there, you had already been by. And,
Yep.
because I said,
Yeah.
we were going to bring you some stuff, and they said, no, we're all good, it's just we've got to get the road fixed.
Yeah. that's
So they were working on that this
Good,
weekend.
good, I hope they can get that fixed soon.
Thank you for making a trip out there.
Yeah, yeah, and other people had, I was expecting like nothing there, and it, sweet, someone had set up a table and put a sign on it, and there's already, and then they just added to the stuff.
That's awesome,
So it was good,
yeah.
yeah, but there was a lot of people, it was like 8 families or something.
And that
up
footbridge,
there.
it's just wide enough to
Yeah.
go across, yep.
Yeah.
When I made it across over a week ago, there's no table or anything, but I was able to get the water, case of
Yeah.
water over there.
Yeah, that's good. Utilities, I was gonna comment on that, and when I say utilities, I'm talking electricity or power and water. Duke Energy's made, no pun intended, a lot of progress. Put in progress.
Duke Energy progress.
Now, Hooper's Creek that's, I think, still kind of our roughest area as far as power outages.
Yes.
That I can tell from the map,
All on Jackson Road.
really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my hearts go out to people out there, because I just got my power back on Sunday at home, but we had a generator, so we were lucky. And the water's still out, as you all know, because we've been, communicating about it. So that water is essentially back everywhere in Fletcher, in most of Henderson County, except for Hooper's Creek. And they've, complicated repair. It was an odd-sized pipe. They had to go around things. They found another break this
Yeah.
morning or yesterday.
You see did my message ever go through?
Yeah, it's funny.
I thought, maybe I shouldn't have done that. He probably doesn't think that's funny. It's just or whatever.
Yeah, I got that. And so now, the latest is, I heard from the city manager in Hendersonville, they're hoping by tomorrow it'll be back on. I think it'll be back tomorrow. I think they try and, under-promise, over-deliver. They're trying to do the best they can. They've been working like around the clock out there, because that's their last major area that's not restored yet. So power is pretty good in most of the county, or at least in Fletcher, I would say the whole county. But they've made a lot of progress countywide, and then Hooper's Creek for water. So that's kind of the latest on utility restoration. And then the big thing that's going to be happening, I know you all are getting questions about this, and they're going to start debris removal.
Yeah, I've had questions.
So the present arrangement or understanding or deal right now is the municipalities have requested to go under the umbrella of the county. The county's been receptive to that. We've officially made that request to them, and they've been putting information out on their website. And the plan is, and they have to have a contractor, and I think they're selecting one that's like state approved, they have to be competitively bid. It's a pre-bid process, not like going through that now. And then that contractor sets up, there may not be sites to put it to, but they'll set up their own, I think, to stage debris. But they're also communicating to try and do this curbside as much as possible and collect it, which is going to be, we need people to be, it's going to be a monumental task to do that. So that's what we're hearing, and they're going to try and do this curbside as much as possible.
Good.
So people can bring it up there and, separate vegetative, so like brush, trees from general household type of construction, demolition, debris, white goods, that kind of thing.
And what do you mean?
Our folks can do white goods, we can do collection with that. Our public works crew, it's a little bit of a dilemma now with the whole vegetative debris, because if we're gonna get this removed under this bigger contract to do debris removal countywide, we do brush pickups, and so we're still getting brush pickup orders, but to what extent do we keep collecting all the curbside brush? I mean, we'll keep doing it to get as much of it away, and what they've been doing, because it's so much of it, is staging some of it by the green building, like we've done before, the green building between Public Works and here, and then, you don't want to handle it twice, but
Bless you.
and then have it removed from there or tub grind it down and gone. We're trying to pull Public Works back a little bit from that, because if this is going to be removed, not to try and handle it twice.
Yeah.
So,
This could be a lot.
I think I'm more concerned about people's furniture and those goods that
Yeah.
are sitting out on their front
I know.
lawns before
Yeah.
they start getting vermin and things like
Yeah,
that, trying to
yeah.
infiltrate that stuff in their front
Yeah,
yards, is to
bears.
alleviate that from their.
Yeah. So tomorrow, so we had a managers meeting this morning. It's just municipal managers. We invite the county staff. They weren't at the meeting this morning. The last two, they must have had a conflict. They couldn't be there. But as the municipal managers, we discussed it. And we're trying to get something set up with them tomorrow at 10:30 to talk to maybe county manager and the county engineer, because I think Marcus Jones, the county engineer's kind of been heading this up, I believe. I don't want to speak for them, to see kind of next steps. We don't want to push them, we know they're trying to get this together for all the county, but we just want to, so we can communicate back to our residents, what's the plan, what's going to happen next. I mean, it's complicated. I know, Jim, you shared a message, and they have to have these monitors. I don't remember monitors before from other disasters. I've been involved with one hurricane in another job, but, and I guess they regulate or make sure that what's put out and collected and taken is done properly.
Right.
From, I guess for environmental and other reasons. So they're hiring these monitors to help with this process. So that, I just want you all to know, because we're going to be inundated. I mean, we're already starting to get who can take this away, or do I have to take it away? And some people are just doing it themselves. I've saw dumpsters out on Thorncrest. And,
Landfill's been a nightmare,
yeah, and
the traffic.
the landfill's been open, so a transfer station's been open since Tuesday of last week. And I'm not sure on this, but I heard that they were waiving fees right now, the tipping fee. Okay. Which is, it's a big help, And, I'll just say, it's good we are where we're a county that's a fairly prosperous county. The county has healthy reserves, they have healthy cash flow to try and tackle this now. Yes, we'll be going for FEMA reimbursement. Town of Fletcher is in a healthy place with fund balance. So if there winds up being some things we can't get FEMA reimbursement, we're in an excellent position to, absorb some of that so that we can be more nimble, trying to respond to the public and doing this. So we're very fortunate. And that's one of the reasons why you have a healthy fund balance, is natural disasters like this.
Absolutely. We
So-
appreciate it.
Yeah, so that helps.
All the hard work that
Yeah.
you put into the budget and making sure that our fund balance is at its max.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep. So the county, has done the same thing. I mean, I've been here a long time. I've watched how they've typically, the short answer, how do you build your fund balance? You spend less than what you're bringing in. So, and then your piggy bank or your fund balance grows, so, which is important for things like this and other things for healthy fund balance. So that was a little bit on debris removal, and we want to keep that moving and keep getting information out to the public on it. And before I get to the last thing, I'll just say, I've been impressed with the county's response on this. They've got their arms as good as you can. This was catastrophic stuff in some parts of the county. I mean, we had deaths here. There's going to be more deaths that are going to be after this. I don't have a total count right now. But as far as emergency manager and other important staff, I think the county manager and emergency service director and all the key staff have really stepped up and had a good plan and attacked this thing. And we have good resources too. They have good
That
capacity.
warehouse.
Yeah. And other people, the warehouse.
The warehouse was a
You know-
godsend and just a place to put all this stuff that's coming in. I
Yeah.
mean, that's been huge.
People like Brittany Brady from
That
the
was a divine
partnership.
intervention thing
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
And Michelle Owens from TDA, Tourism Development Authority. This isn't what they do, but we've had a lot of people, they're talented people that know how to get stuff done, that have helped with coordination and a lot of things like that. So that's been very helpful. I've been impressed with Henderson County, and I think that's going to help us come out of this. I mean, we have a lot ahead of us. We're going to have problems, we're going to have conflict with things, but I think we're setting off on the right foot on this. I think we're ahead of the game, at least it feels like it. So thank you to all those partners in going forward.
You mentioned about roads.
Yes,
Well, I think it's walkway path.
yes. I
I'm
saw
not
something
really
about-
sure. I think one time we had a discussion quite a while back about their road, or they had a need at one point.
Yeah.
But their road is in really bad shape
Yeah.
from the flood, and they really need like a box scraper and gravel. And I told a gentleman today that I would check with the town. I wasn't sure about the designation of that road,
Yeah,
if it's considered.
it's private.
I was afraid you were going to tell me that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Eric's already responded to them.
okay.
I mean, we're trying to put them in touch with the right people, or maybe there's someone can assist. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people are trying to do creatively on this to get, if you don't have the resources, try and get resources together, or if you know the right person who knows how to put a culvert in, and you can get some type of funding assistance. I mean, people are doing GoFundMes.
Would they be eligible for any kind of reimbursement from FEMA?
They might, I've heard, but I
We don't
could be
know.
wrong about
Yeah.
this, but it's hard getting it for like a road or a culvert. And I think when you get into private roads, it gets more difficult because there's no kind of public control over it or designation. I know there's still public roads in the sense that I can go drive down there to go to someone's house and
Sure.
they can't kick me off of it, but yeah, so that, it gets much more
dicey.
difficult.
Yeah.
I really hate that because
I know.
you've got that situation with like the road that was near Ingalls.
Yeah.
One time, they were having an issue with
Right.
getting across to their home, and they wanted us to help fix theirs. And then, whenever we have a development, we automatically adopt the roads, in that whole development. And then you've got this very small development, with these 3 or 4 homes on walkway path,
Yeah.
and they're just out of luck right there. None of them are going to have that.
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't even have the money to, okay, now we got to get this road scraped and gravel down and stuff.
Excuse
It'd be
me.
difficult for any of us, so.
That question's gonna keep coming up, and I know it's tough, and some people do a better job of talking to the right people and getting things together in there, and some kind of, not their own fault, but just flounder trying to get that fixed. I mean, whatever we can think of, Sheila, to get creative about it, we'll do it. I mean, our public works can't be going out on private roads and fixing them. But I know we help as much as we can. I mean, we've tried on DOT roads to help where DOT just never gets to.
I mean, I would imagine, this is probably out of scope too, but I'm just kind of fishing for things to see what catches. But I mean, could we even, it's pretty unprecedented, could we even ask for legislative assistance for them? I mean, because
It's a good idea, yeah.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
legislative assistance for them, like, could we get some money from there? I mean, this is I mean, it's unprecedented. I think it's out of
Right.
the ordinary in general to ask, but
I think it's a great idea, and I don't know, I mean, I know we don't have enough funding to cover all the transportation projects that are, DOT vetted transportation through like the MPO and that. But for existing roads, I mean, we're still a state with good resources,
Yeah.
good revenue, to try and maybe get legislation to help
And
cover
I
some
know with the
stuff like.
MPO, I know with all the issues now with funding, it's even gonna be worse.
yeah,
now,
absolutely.
Especially with the District 13, 14.
Yeah.
The last thing, unless you all, any other comments or questions on that,
Mark, just one question. I know
Yeah.
we've talked about our residential folks, but what about our business partners in town? Do we know where some of those stand, especially down on the south end that took in? I wasn't here, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure who down there was affected. And
probably at least what I've
Toy
heard,
store,
pardon me?
the toy store, some of those.
I don't know that they,
I don't know.
I didn't hear that there was flooding in that center there. Now, there
I
may
know
have
the
been
water
others.
was in-
Van on its side.
Oh, yeah, down at that end, so it did come up, but I don't know, I mean, it may have stopped right there, I haven't heard about
Okay.
that commercial strip. What I have heard is, and it's not shocking, like I call it Cane Creek Industrial Park, so all our industry off of Mills Gap Road that runs
I know
near Cane
white,
Creek.
I know white trucking, I saw those folks the other day and they lost everything. So,
And then, the water did come into the old steel case, which is Fletcher Business Park. It came into the old steel case building, that Fletcher Business Park building. So there was damage to, a lot of that is leased space for other manufacturers. There is some, like Diamond Brand does a manufacturing process in there. But there was Wilson Art, I think, had a bunch of their product destroyed or damaged, and James Wilson, who helps manage that for Pulliam Properties, he called me, and he was asking about, like, basically the stuff they got to throw out, and just damage to the building, and I said, I don't know that the county, if we stay under this umbrella for debris removal, if they're doing that for commercial businesses, or for businesses, if it's only like residential stuff. But that's where I heard flooding. Mainetti did fairly well. They did get a little bit, that's our, the newest one, right closest to the river. They had a little bit. I don't think it got into the Wilson Art Building itself. It might have had a little in there, but it was mostly damage to that old steel case building, Fletcher Business Park. And I hadn't heard about like Reinhardt Racing
Reinhardt,
and that. I don't think it got
I think
in
there's
there.
a glove company down.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't see any, I haven't seen photos or anything for.
Yeah, and then Blue Ridge Metals and that, kind of on the other side, I think the water came up there, I don't know if it got into the building. And that might have been as far as it got. That's what I'm hearing as far as flooding to businesses.
It would have been interesting to see the camera footage from some of these security cameras, to see which direction the water came in, or,
So we
Right.
finally got to go to Castors and sit down and eat as a family, and the white trucking folks came in and they said there's a camera that was there on Wilson Art, showed like a 10-foot wave of water coming down through there at one point. through
down the
industrial
road
park.
or across the park.
Like on LA White, or
Yeah,
that's
LA
like the
White,
main
yeah.
drag in there, yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah, they said that's what got their trucking business.
Yeah. Well, the last thing, and if there's other things you all want to discuss relative, to at least our storm response right now, or post-storm response, I know there's all kinds of information about FEMA and about going to FEMA for, I talked a little bit about public facility damage and our expenses responding post-storm here with staff hours, machinery, equipment, supplies. So for the public, just general public, hey, my house is damaged and, you know, X, Y, Z, or businesses, you know, we did this like with one pager fact. We actually had some good information, good contacts on it. They were handing that out in our hub here in the south parking lot. And there is all kinds of information out there for, you know, people to contact FEMA. FEMA's been pretty responsive so far. The next big thing, I guess, is them setting up their city here, so to speak. And I'm hearing it's going to be a Blue Ridge Community College in a parking lot there. And this is where they set up basically their staff. They're going to be on site here for a while. I don't think it's a reception, like a receiving area for like the public to go. So I haven't got any information about like who you can go see, or if it's going to be near there, or if that's going to be at a different location, but that's happening. And so as much as we can get information out about where people go to do that, we'll, you know, put it on our website, Facebook, newsletter. Yep. I mean, we've had our newsletter person who, you know, wears a lot of hats is still stranded in Lake Lure. So Susan Hefner is on our staff. She lives at Boys Camp Road, right across from Chimney Rock Baptist Church.
So she's stranded.
Yeah, and we're hoping she can get out maybe Wednesday and get out, because there's, whatever the bridge going to Polk County's been, supposed to be repaired by then, but she's been trapped. She's been helping, I mean, her husband, well, her husband's pastor of the church there, and so, but yeah, Susan works on a newsletter. So yeah, today we're just trying to get back to semi-normal. We had Candy back in the office, and Christine's been able to come in since last week, but we, you know, Candy and Susan they were kind of cut off there for a while, so, but yeah, we're trying to get this information out for the public, and hopefully that's helpful, and, you know, we're open to suggestions or whatever direction you all want to give us to helping the public on this. And I'll just say, and Jim sent a nice text to me yesterday about just what you're hearing out there. Our community's been great about this. It's nice, neighbors have been helping neighbors, and we hear that because we went out, Eric and I, like a day or two after we were back in here, just several days driving around, and people were, you know, they'd stop us, or we'd stop and talk to them, and, you know, it's like, well, we're helping in the neighborhood with this, and they appreciated we were out there trying to see what's going on, and we talked to them and tell them what we knew, but people in Fletcher appreciate everything that everybody can try to do to help each other, and so it's encouraging to see that, I'll just say, and thankfully, again, we weren't hit quite nowhere near as bad as, you know, like the Chimney Rocks and some other, I know it's not a comfort to someone's home that was flooded and maybe a loss, but that was nice to see, you know, going around. And you know, we can see on the news all kinds of nice stories of people being rescued and neighbors helping each other. But, you know, we saw some of those stories just driving around, like someone even joking, you know, even that, you know, I'm not saying any names or anything, but like, that neighbor I don't like, but we're helping them down there, you know, that kind of thing. You know, it's like you step up and help people that maybe you might
I think it's
not talk to, or you might not get along with.
I think it's forced neighbors to meet neighbors that they had never met before.
Yeah. So that kind of thing is nice.
Well, just while we're on the topic and along those lines, I just want to reiterate thanks to council. I know Trevor and Jim are first responders. I know they've been
Yeah.
incredibly busy. I know Sheila and Keith were out helping at the supply thing. I know staff has been, y'all have been excellent. Our police officers have been nonstop. Public Works has been nonstop. And, I mean, everybody's been wonderful, so thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thankfully, we didn't have a lot of bad calls for law enforcement after this, and that was helpful. Yeah, so, but still, yeah, so traumatic.
Yeah.
Some of the things I heard today, just talking to someone driving into work, it's a lot.
It is.
You know?
One last question I had. I know we
Yes.
briefly talked about the Groves at Town Center.
Yes.
Have we heard anything from those folks? Because if you live on the first floor there, you're displaced.
You're done.
Yeah, I don't know, you know, Eric and I rode in there, Eric Roof and I drove in there, and, yeah, it was just really hard to see that, because number one, all those people on the first floor are pretty much displaced.
Yeah.
Number two, I don't know, and this might be for futures, you know, learning, I mean, I know they went and were trying to tell people to get out or to evacuate, but I think it was kind of, you know, it was later in the process on leaving. But the number two thing was the cars, how many cars were
Yeah.
damaged.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see all those vehicles. I don't know where they're, yeah, we talked to a couple people, met a couple people in there.
Yeah, same.
And, yeah, and they, I mean, they had a remarkably good attitude considering what they just went through, but, I don't know. I know their shelters are open. There's a shelter in Endyville Elementary, and there's a shelter at that sports and activity center in downtown Hendersonville. And then there's the shelter at the Ag Center, which is, you know, closest for our folks.
And I
but-
think Gold's Gym down here had
Oh.
something,
Oh,
the
yeah,
old
yeah,
Gold's
yeah.
Gym
Really?
down on
That's
Hendersonville
okay.
Road.
Red
That's-
Cross is doing something, I
Yeah,
think,
when the Ag Center filled up, that's where some of our folks started
Yeah.
going to, down across from Publix.
Okay. Yep, so there's shelters, I know no one wants to stay in a shelter, but I mean, if you have nowhere to go, or
Yeah.
you don't have family or something, it's something to get until FEMA's gonna help with getting temporary housing too, but that takes a little time. So, I mean, that was essentially it I had on that report.
Yeah.
I really didn't have much under manager comments, just, and I mean, was there anything else?
There was one thing that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
And I just kind of highlighted how hard staff's been working. I know Sheila and I talked briefly about it, but is there something that we can do for staff to show our appreciation? Like, would it be possible to give them like an extra PTO day, or, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
something.
we can think of something, I mean, if you're looking for suggestions from me, or, you know, me, Heather, and whoever else would want to, we can do that. And I appreciate that very, very much, you bringing that up. But, thank you, yeah, I mean,
I think it's something that we need to talk about at some
Yeah.
point in the near future. Because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
work that's been done has just been unprecedented.
Yeah.
So,
I think it'd be
And,
very fitting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, all last week seeing them out there.
Yeah.
And I was out there, it's hot, it's humid, and it
Yeah.
was hard.
And thank you to, I'll forget names of people who did this. So, you know, we had a bunch of businesses that brought food out here. So when that hub was going on here, or this distribution hub, there was, and see, the car dealership up at the interstate there. Auto Advantage, I believe, brought food. Blue Sky did. Auction House, I believe, did.
The BTM.
BTM did, yes,
Yes.
BTM. And if you haven't had one of their
Chick-fil-A
sausage and egg
Saturday.
biscuits,
Oh, yeah.
it's
It's amazing.
very good. Not to give a commercial here, but their stuff is good.
He does a great
Their food is good. Yeah.
It is, and,
We had Carrabba's Sunday.
yeah.
You did, you
So-
did?
Oh, that's nice.
That was
So
so good.
thank you to all the businesses that did that. I mean, our public works, you know, it's like, most of us had, if we didn't have damage to our house, we had no power, no water. And so they're, you know, they're coming in, so they're families and, you know, just trying to kind of survival mode there for,
Well, you work all day till
So-
6 o'clock and then you walk into a house with no power,
Yeah.
no water.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do to
All
feed
you want to do
yourself
is
for
take a shower and
dinner?
go to bed.
yeah. Yeah. So it was, but thank you to our local businesses that brought food out. You know, I was able to bring something over to Public Works a day or two after, and that was helpful. You know, and you're going, and it's like, when do you stop? But you need to stop and eat
Yeah.
and stuff, so.
That's why our employees need a little something, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'll make a note on that. And that's, the only other thing I had, if you want me to go into manager comments, was, I hope we can still do this, but well, two things. Before I forget, LGCCA is canceled for this month due to just everything we're doing with storm response. And then the Community Shred Day, so we had First Citizens, Mitzi Reed was organizing that in conjunction with, like, Heather and I were working on it and getting the police out to do one of those medication turn-in pill drop things. That's still set up for the 18th, but I'm probably going to contact Mitzi and see, is that still on? I mean, I think we can still help with it. I mean, it's mostly the shred company shredding as people come up. We were gonna do some other food stuff, if it's still gonna go on, I don't know if we'll do the food thing, maybe. And I think the police can still do, but I need to check with them, the medication turn-in, but that was the only thing, that was coming up October 18th. It was really nice last year. It's nice to have that, one in the fall like this, and then one in the spring.
Right.
So people can do that. So I'll let you know if that's still on. I mean, I hope it is. If it isn't, hey, I know we all have a lot going on, and maybe it isn't, it gets canceled, but I'll need to talk to her. So, you haven't heard anything, have you, Keith? No. You haven't
It's been
mentioned it?
crazy.
Yeah, you've been
Yeah.
too. So, that's all I had.
Do you have any other business? Anybody from council? All righty. Well, again, thank y'all. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
And thank you, Preston, because you were in there too.
Yeah, you were,
Yeah.
Appreciate it, yeah.
everybody, it's a team effort.
Yeah, everybody's done well.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourn, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.
It's getting dark earlier, isn't it?
Yes, it is.